Issue 137. With Patch flying the Freedom Fighter Special 2, bringing Sally, Tails, Sonic, Rotor, and Bunny to Megalopolis Island, I'm already seeing a plot hole, because unless Patch is really recent here, he shouldn't have needed Sally to correct him that he's going to old Megalopolis. Especially since, didn't he just fly the airship here the last mission he was on? I know old and new Megalopolis have similar names and look similar, but they've got two completely different functions. You'd think if Patch was making these kinds of slip-ups without faking amnesia, he would have gotten caught by now. Also, I guess the king didn't leave to go on his tour yet since he said he'd have Patch accompanying him on it and it couldn't be over already. Then someone I can't recognize at all says on the computer screen that New Megalopolis stretches northeast of the castle and ends at a huge peninsula. Sally for some reason wishes that she had told her dad about the mission, and Sonic snorts, "I'm surprised you even came along, Sal. Aren't you mad at me for going on these missions?" I like that. Then he says that the king would have told them to wait, and by then who knows where Tommy would be. Okay, so did Sonic try to get Tommy to join the Freedom Fighters just for him to immediately get kidnapped? How competent is he? If he just stayed and not hold the whole time, how could he have been kidnapped? Sally reasons that she's helping because Tommy's her childhood friend too, even though we never see him at all in Freedom Fighters as kids' stories. And she arbitrarily insists that for the mission to be a success, she needs to be a part of it. Somehow. Sonic then chooses not to argue with her, even though I can't imagine what she could have to contribute, besides the usual leadership skills anyways. After I guess Sonic says that it feels good to have the old Sally back, coming up with strategic plans on the fly, and yeah, I noticed she seems back to normal too. She tells Patch to land the airship on the rooftop of a building in Old Megalopolis. He then says, "Your wish is my command." I guess trying to be snarky about being ordered around by her. Sally then orders Nicole to show them the mission's schematics, and plans that Sonic and her will take the lead. Rotor, Nicole, and Bunny will follow, while Patch and Tails will uselessly stay on the ship for a quick getaway. I can understand Patch because he's got no special powers, but Tails? Also, Rotor retired from active missions on the field. Patch then gets annoyed at being told to stay behind, pointing out that Tails can fly the plane himself and he should be there to protect Sally, sucking up to her looking annoyed. Sonic puts his arms around both him and Tails, looking at both of them joking around that he isn't used to Antoine volunteering for anything, and calls Patch a brave new hero, not wanting to miss all the action. I wonder how Patch felt about that, being called a hero and stuff. After Tails amusingly looks all pouty about being told to stay there when he can fly with his tails, Sally is told that she trusts him with the plane, even though it really should be the more useless Patch who stays here. Sally shouldn't have her mind changed so pathetically easily by a subordinate. Sally orders Nicole to calculate the best route to take to find the Robodyne factory with the unclear name that manufactured the Tommy duplicates, and somehow she's able to do so. Uncle Chuck's detective work was what got them this far, filling in that potential plot hole. Sally uses some binoculars and sees many swap-bots and Robians that must be infiltrators without their fake skin or furs. After her group goes in, she whispers to her friends to keep quiet and that Nicole's map indicates that they go right. She doesn't need to tell them to go right, just saying follow her is good enough. What, is she gonna tell them to turn left or right every corner? Those making noise? Bunny pulls Patch through a hole or something telling him to hurry up, with Patch saying he didn't need her help. He's so self-conscious about needing people's help and not being as competent as everyone else that he lashes out and gets all irritated because of it. I can definitely see the resemblance with Antoine. It makes perfect sense that his evil twin would be like that, being an exaggeration of his negative, hidden qualities. And I like this implying that he's got a bit of insecurity, having a sore spot about being treated like that, and reminded that he might not be that useful. He wouldn't be sensitive to it if he was completely sure of himself. They all are shocked at seeing several assembly lines of infiltrators made by the thousands. So why did it take Eggman and Robotnik this long to start making duplicate robots again after the Sally miniseries is joined the only factory with them? Sally naturally says that this changes their priority, so they have to take down this place and then rescue Tommy. Naturally, Sonic being the more emotional one, the Kirk to her Spock, argues with Sally, but wait, not because of Tommy, but because they wouldn't be able to hide the fact that they did this mission from Eggman or the King. Why not? They could just give some other hero group the credit. And if the King is really that much of a petty control freak that he punished them all for going to, God forbid, take down a fake duplicate robot factory as soon as possible, then he'll only prove himself to be the same meddling jerk he was earlier. As Rotor puts his hand on his face in exhaustion at it, Sally asserts that she's the leader, and what she says goes. And Sonic snarks, "Oh yeah? What if it puts Tommy in more danger? You ever think of that?" I love Sally and Sonic arguing, getting mad at each other. It feels so much more natural having two opposing personalities clash like this. I couldn't get enough of this if it was dozens of issues worth. Then they get some Shadow Swap-Od's attention and start fighting them. And Sally says Rotor before seeing that Rotor's doing, something with a great device with an antenna, saying that he's already on it. Sally lampshades that great minds think alike, and says that she'll get Sonic. Just because they're both smart doesn't mean them both coming up with the exact same plan without words makes sense. It's not like they're identical twins. A Shadow Swap-Bot gets electrocuted because Rotor electrocuted the floor, and Sonic was prevented from being hurt by that by Sally swinging by on that rope she was holding, saying, "Hope you don't mind being saved by a girl," with a blank expression. Sonic doesn't mind, which is good. Rotor figures that, knowing Sonic, he went to save Tommy, and his friends will have to follow up on Sally's plan to blow the building up, hoping that they'd be able to escape in time. Which they will, because Sonic's a fucking hedgehog. Nicole hacks into the network somehow, and they find out where Tommy is. After Sonic and Sally reunite with Rotor, Rotor asks where Nicole is. At first I was questioning why Sally would ever lose Nicole, but then it turns out she and Sonic are actually duplicate robots, naturally sent to confuse them. Fortunately, Bunny figures out the trick instead of assuming she betrayed her, and the Sonic robot for some reason talks just like a mindless swap bot trying to apprehend Rotor, even though duplicate robots like the last one as Sally and the Fiona duplicate are supposed to be better at talking than that. After they fight the robots, with Patch damaging one with his sword effortlessly, even though Antoine's sword was always useless at damaging robots, Sonic and Sally free Tommy. And that's actually a heartwarming moment, as Sally says, "I'm just Sally. Please don't treat me like a stuffy princess," when a hug will do. And the hug is surprisingly heartwarming to see. Then Sally gets a message from Rotor that they're on the rooftop, meeting a lot of resistance, and the bomb's ready to go off at any minute. After they get surrounded by robots, with Sonic for some reason saying they're in trouble instead of spin dashing in a circle to cut them all apart immediately, the airship shows up, creating a smoke screen to save them. And they all hurry in, with Patch being annoyed at being pulled in by Bunny when he could have run in himself. He's like the Squidward of the gang, he's always looking like such a sourpuss. With that, they leave in the airship, with Sally saying that they somehow are forced to tell the king about them going on the mission, and that part will not be easy. In the next story, Sonic 20 years later complains about having to go along on the trip and wants to not go, with Sally refusing to go along with it, while Julie is trying to wake Knuckles up. Sally asks Sonic if he's still mad about what happened last year, whatever that was, and Sonic insists with no self-awareness that he never holds a grudge. Right, he never has any enemies, ever. We see Manic get into the airship saying he loves the luxuries in it, like a true rich boy. And at first I thought that was Sonic because he looks just like him, but with a gap in his teeth. It's kind of lazy having their children look exactly like them when they were kids. After he asks, "Are we there yet?" just to annoy his parents, and Julie expresses concern about Knuckles maybe not wanting to see Sonic because they wonder why this is happening, Sally tells Sonic that he hasn't gone for his usual walks with Sally after dinner recently. Wouldn't he rather run instead? Walks should be insanely, excruciatingly boring to Sonic. And Julie tells Knuckles that their guests will be here soon, being told that they won't show up until early afternoon. The Sally and Sonic part is easily the more interesting part of this story, so I guess it's a good thing that it annoyingly always shares half the page, because you never have to go a page without it, but could it at least be horizontal instead of vertical? And this is where Sonic tells Sally that while she was born and raised to be a queen, he's not cut out to be a king. The sheer fact that Sally's surprised at this point is proof that he never should have married her. She doesn't understand him at all. She's like, "Huh? What are you saying? Isn't she supposed to be smart?" Meanwhile, Knuckles doesn't want to spend time with Sonic if he doesn't have to. Julie makes him promise that he won't do anything stupid. Knuckles insists that it wasn't his fault whatever happened last time, and Julie complains that he used to tell her everything, and now she feels like such a stranger. Sally compares Sonic to his immature son Manic, saying condescendingly, "Did you forget you're a grown-up as well as a father?" She doesn't love Sonic, she wants to change him. And only then would she be truly satisfied once he's not even really Sonic. The perfect ideal girlfriend for Sonic would love to spend the rest of her days going on thrilling adventures with Sonic, which should really go without saying. They're not even happy together here, so what's to be happy for? Meanwhile, Knuckles tells Julie about the chances that the weather effects are really implying something nasty. So Knuckles might be blaming Sonic thanks to all his zone hopping inexplicably causing that before the zone cops could cause it thousands of years ago. And that's why he doesn't want to see him? That's stupid. Sally accuses Sonic of having a midlife crisis when it has nothing to do with that. It's about his whole nature that he's always had. He'd have this problem with living this gig as a king no matter how young he was. She just doesn't get it. The guests arrive at Julie's house, with Manic asking why his family doesn't have a maid or butler to announce them since they're rich and powerful, and he's called a young hooligan by Julie's servant. He's even more like Scourge than Sonic is. He doesn't seem to have an ounce of morality in him. Makes sense since he's so much like Sonic, who's a troll, and Sonic's only a hero because of Robotnik. The story ends with Knuckles' daughter telling the person who said there's company to go away. Then in the next story, we see Patch planning on how he'll start his arrogant speech about accepting the assignment as the king's security guard. By the way, why does he say security detail when there's no such word as tail in French? And the translation is exactly what you'd expect, security of tail. So that makes no sense. Then Patch finds a letter from Bunny about how she wanted to write about what happened with Tatiana the other day. Now I'm pretty confused because Patch thinks himself that he remembers. And it was right after he defeated Robotnik with Sonic when Bunny and him were just starting out as a couple. Except he's not Antoine. Is this story non-canon? Why would he remember something he had nothing to do with? Also, security is spelled like the English one, and most importantly, why is he saying ooh la la? I mean, that doesn't make sense because in French, well, English thinks that it has this sort of sexual connotation, but it's actually just more like, oh my, when you translate it. So why would a French speaker, is that some sort of actual thing where they refer to their love interest as that? I'm getting the feeling it's just a mistake though. We then see Bunny talk to him like they're dating, so this must be a flashback. Especially since Antoine gets all startled at seeing her and runs away hiding. Bunny finds him and he explains that his first love, Tatiana, fell for Sonic because he was more of a hero, and Antoine then tried to step up the romance, meeting her at the pond with flowers, only to see her hand in hand with Sonic. This is really confusing. When exactly did this take place? Had to have been before issue 50 to lurk. Then Tatiana moved away somehow. I guess she found another village like Knothole and felt so ashamed of what she did. Did she... This story makes no sense. I'm probably gonna just dismiss it as not canon because it's so contradictory. And it ends with Antoine saying to Tatiana after hugging her, calling her beautiful, that his heart no longer belongs to her for her to trample, and going off with Bunny. Why is Patch smiling at reading this letter about the whole situation, if he then proves he's Patch by heartlessly ripping the letter up? He still thinks it's sweet, I guess. But not sweet enough to not rip up the letter. The first and third stories were by Romy Chacon, and the first one is better, so I'll start with that. After a title page that blatantly lies to you, the story is all about rescuing Tommy from a fake duplicate factory before blowing it up. I love how Sally's back to normal, being calm and making plans, almost as if breaking up with Sonic was the healthiest thing for her or something. Maybe she just can't handle having a boyfriend that risks his life all the time because she's too attached, so she has to detach herself, making her hate him. It seems to be working so far. Patch shows some more character moments by showing how oversensitive and sore he is about being left out of the action like he's useless, and gets defensive at the idea that he needs help. How abusive do you think his parents were to end up in this insecure and defensive way? I'd really like to know. Also, he succeeds in attacking robots with his sword, when Antoine didn't. It's a good story. I love how Sonic and Sally argue. The biggest problem I have won't be a problem until next issue. That the king is going to have a problem with the Freedom Fighters carrying out this awesome mission just because he didn't tell them to. I'm sure Eggman will be just as much of a control freak. I also don't like the fact that they didn't even try to explain why it took this long to get fake duplicate robots produced again after the Sally miniseries. But I love how they made use of the factory's concept by having a fake Sally and Sonic attack the Freedom Fighters, even if the Sonic talked like a generic robot for some reason. The second story, by Ken Penders, had an appeal problem where it was frustrating to read because the first half of each page was Sonic and Sally, and the second half was Knuckles and Julie having a much less interesting conversation. And you had to read them vertically. It was always distracting, the format, like my eyes kept getting drawn to the right so that I read from left to right like most people. But I love how Sonic and Sally are having this conversation. and how Sally proves herself to not be the ideal mate by misunderstanding him as having a midlife crisis when he was never the type to sit around bored on the throne. Sally just wants to change him, make him not who he is. She wants a mature man who doesn't want to go on adventures, and that's not Sonic. So I love that this is at least addressed, but I can't believe they made it this far. In the third story, its biggest problem was that it had Patch remember, and in his thoughts no less, so he's not lying to anyone, that he defeated Robotnik and had Tatiana's love interest we never heard of before, all the way back then. How can he privately remember something that didn't involve him? The writer clearly wasn't aware of or didn't agree with him actually being Patch, even though it would be out of character for Antoine to tear up the letter from Bunny instead of keeping it out of sentimentality and go straight back to arrogantly planning his speech full of lies, which was kind of an important character moment for Patch. Also, Tatiana being introduced so early on feels like a retcon, especially since she inexplicably moved away to who knows where to justify us not seeing her, only to come back to Knothole for no reason. If she moved away out of shame from the way she dumped Antoine instead of staying with Sonic like would be consistent with her character established here, why did she ever come back at all? The story's biggest problem would have been solved if they just never had that one text box from Patch implying that he was there all the way back then, since he's not completely insane like Eggman and thinks he actually is Antoine. But I do love that moment where he rips up the paper. Why would Patch care about Bunny? It makes perfect sense that he wouldn't care. I can imagine that if you're a first-time reader who doesn't know the upcoming plot twist, this would be pretty annoying and heart-wrenching though.